everyone, it's Niamh Townsend here. I'm going to review my picks from day one on the Cheltenham Exchange, those selections that I put up on the podcast a few weeks ago for the day one preview. It was a great Cheltenham festival overall. I was lucky enough to be there all 4 days. I've got to say though, Tuesday was probably my favourite day. As I'm sure many people will agree, it was just absolutely fantastic to be there. In the Supreme, I selected Ante-Post, who came fifth. I think he just got found out in this company, if I'm being honest. The first two home were the best horses in the race. I think Marine Nationale is a very, very good horse with more improvement to come. And actually, in terms of him winning the race without having another run in the same calendar year, no other horse has done that for a little while in the Supreme. That takes some doing. And as for Facile Vega, I think anyone saying that the bubble has burst with him needs to, take a look at themselves, because this horse, he'll be better when he steps up in trip, I think. He's not bred to be a 2-miler. And I think he ran a really good race. When you look how he hit the last hurdle, he's done very well. That's not helped him out at all, that final jump, but he was up there and it did look like he was going to win for a second, but just being caught for pace at the end. In the Arkle, I selected John Bon, who came second. I wasn't a believer in El Fabiolo, but he was just phenomenal. He was the better horse on the day. He's improved for fences. He's improved for more experience. He's just a better horse this year. He'll probably win a champion chase next year, I have no doubt. As for John Bon, he's just been unfortunate to probably run into two exceptional horses on his 2 tries at Cheltenham, being Constitution Hill and El Fabiolo. Maybe his future lies over further. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say, but it's not the be-all and end-all for him. He will have a big day in his career. He just is unlucky that he's around at the same time as El Fabiolo and Constitution Hill. I picked Fast or Slow in the Ultima, who finished second. He wasn't beaten too far. I thought he had a really good run. Good for each way purposes as well. Just the same story as last year for this horse. Just second in one of these big field handicaps at Cheltenham. It was a good run. I don't know what happened at the end, like whether he stopped when he hit the front. But Korak Rambler, it was great to see him go back to back in this race. He's a very good horse, and clearly this is his race. And yeah, Fast or Slow, hopefully he'll win one of these big handicaps one day. I think he deserves it. Constitution Hill, I selected in the Champion Hurdle. Obviously, he won. I think we all know he won. He was absolutely exceptional. Just a breathtaking performance. The best Champion Hurdle winner that I've seen in my lifetime. Just like to say I was born, Isterbrack was before my time. But yeah, I think Constitution Hill is just an exceptional racehorse. If he were mine, I'd be going after winning multiple Champion Hurdles myself, but unfortunately I don't own Constitution Hill. And I think the possibility is that he's going to go chasing next year, which he's absolutely earned the right to do. And look, if they want to go for a Gold Cup with him, by all means they absolutely should give it a go. It'd be great to see him try and emulate Dawn Run, but that's a long road ahead. But whatever this horse does, the world is at his feet. He could do whatever he wanted to. I think he's just he's probably the most talented horse that I've seen in my time in racing in terms of National Hunt. Yeah. I picked Marie's Rock in the Mare's Hurdle. The race was not run to suit her at all. She needs cover. She had problems in travel. Like, she was way too keen. She nearly hit a gate as well at one point. When I watched it back, I saw there was like gates on the inside of the track, and yeah, she nearly ran into one of them, which isn't going to help. But look, the winner and the second, they did it from the front. The race was run to suit them. It turned into a sprint, but I'm never going to ever talk against Honeysuckle. I thought that was the moment of the week for me, 100%. She was phenomenal. I've never been so happy for a selection of mine to lose, if I'm being honest. Honeysuckle, the week belonged to her and to Rachel Blackmore and to Henry de Bromhead. it was just amazing to see her go out with a win. I picked Sir Alan in the Boodles, who came 11th. Probably his position didn't help. He was held up last in the Boodles, which isn't always the best move, but that was that. He hit 3 out, which isn't going to help him, and that probably just put an end to any chance he had. Look, just one of those, really. Disappointing, but we moved on. I'm over it now. But yeah, Sir Alan just probably one to forget, really. He didn't run badly, but yeah, I had hoped for a bit better. Final race of the day was the National Hunt Chase. I picked Gaillard du Mesnil, and he won the lucky last. Class prevailed in this case. He was the best horse in the race, and that showed, and that's what's required for this sort of race now. Anyway, those are my selections from day one. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all enjoyed Cheltenham. It was just a great week, and thanks to everyone on the Cheltenham Exchange for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Bye.
Good evening, everyone. Just doing a quick video of my sum up on the Cheltenham Exchange's Wednesday preview for last week's Cheltenham Festival. Now, it was a little bit of a nightmare week on my front, punting wise. However, it was a brilliant week nonetheless. And actually, Wednesday was probably my best punting day out of the lot. Now, it was a typical Wednesday, wasn't it? It was exactly the same as last year. The rain came down, and you're thinking, oh God, like, what is going on here? But then you thought the likes of Energumene, Delta Work, who we'll get onto in a short while, it just proved to be their making, and it was the exact same last year, and it was the exact same this year. So we'll get started off. We'll go with the Ballymore, and obviously we had such a good winner in Impere Pass. Now that the talking points were spot on with this horse. He was rumoured to be a rocket, and boy, he came up the hill like one. He was superb. He was so good. He was so popular around the circuit of the festival previews. I didn't take to him personally. I thought that the drift before the off, I thought this might be a little bit uneasy now. I said he'd beat Hermes Allen on the preview, beat him, all right. But I did think Goodland would win. And unfortunately for Goodland, it just wasn't to be. He travelled well, but I just think Mikey O'Sullivan's comments from on ITV, I think it was kind of, he didn't have that same sort of spark, and he didn't know what he was holding on to. He looked like he was travelling well down the hill, but maybe that was that. And I don't think he got up the hill. I think it was evident that he didn't get up the hill. But I do think he is a good horse. I just don't think he showed his best last Wednesday. But we'll move on. He ran well. He credible fourth, I think, in the end. It was a good performance, I thought nonetheless. But Impere Pass has certainly thrown his hat in the champion hurdle picture for next year. Judging if one Constitution Hill does not go. That's a big if. We'll get to the Brown Advisory though, and Jerry Colomb I thought was a good thing if the ground turned up soft. And it was so close, but listen, it wasn't to be. The real whacker, who my good friend Ash Simmons on the Only Fools of Horses podcast, he was such a keen fan of. He backed him at 5-1 Ante-Post, and I thought it was a criminal price. He returned such a bigger price. But nevertheless, it was a good winner for Ash, and it was a bad loser for me. And another one that I did put up in that race was Time Hill. Now, the less said about Time Hill in the Brown Advisory, the better. It just didn't go to plan at all. And you knew your fate, jumping the second fence. It wasn't a good run. He is better than that, but he struggled. The Coral Cup, HMS Seahorse, I thought had a good chance. Just didn't look involved. Didn't look like he was at the races that day. It was a bit of a weird run. He ran well at the festival last year, so it was a disappointing one. But then the tables turned, and the tables turned in my favour. For once in the week, the tables turned, everyone. But then we go on to the Champion Chase, and I said, if this ground was soft, Energumene was a good thing. And boy, he was. The money was right. The 400,000 mystery pound bet on Energumene, it was spot on. He jumped like a buck. He was superb. He never missed a beat, and there was only one winner. Paul Townend cut Editor Djit up, and Nahulan aboard, just coming around the bend, but I thought that horse was beaten anyway. And Edward Stone never lifted a leg. He was very disappointing. That horse will be out for the rest of the season now. We don't know I don't know what to make of that run from Edward Stone. It clearly wasn't him, but the softer ground was definitely for Energumen's favour, and he relished it. He was so good. Hard held on the bridle in the champion chase. That takes some doing. So Delta Work, I mentioned soft ground in the cross country. He was a good thing. Galvin put it up to him, but listen, when you've got one horse who takes these fences as well as Delta Work has, they're very hard to beat. I said the forecast was a good thing as well. That's pretty much, do you know what? If anything to take away from this week, the forecast has actually helped me gain some credibility out of this. I know it's not obviously a rocket science picking the first and second favourite, but they just look so obvious, like last year. We go on to the Grand Annual. Now, before midnight, I mentioned on the podcast, wasn't a strong selection. I thought he'd run well, but I don't think he was ever at home on that ground. It was very testing there on that Wednesday. It was horrible. It was testing for the spectators. It was horrible for me standing in the stand, absolutely dripping from head to toe in rain. But listen, it was a good day. It wasn't a good performance from before midnight. He is getting on. He's 10 years old now. He might just be slightly past it. However, he is an admirable horse, and I'm sure his trainer will definitely get another big pot out of him. But then we go to the bumper, and it was probably my nap of the festival. He's probably my only winning nap of the festival as well, to be fair. A dream to share. He certainly shared my dream of winning the bumper this year. I won the bumper last year with Facile Vega at 10-1. I won it this year with this fella at 7-1. I thought he'd drift, but he didn't drift. And if anything, he was actually really strong throughout the day. And I thought the ground wasn't going to be to his liking, but the fact that the young Gleeson, the stones he had on him to deliver his mount up the inside, cutting everybody off. Patrick Mullins on the well, he was actually on JP's first string, wasn't he? But A Dream to Share was just so good. And the best thing was the jockey waving his stick, saluting the crowd halfway up the running. It was superb. We knew the fate then. And boy, he will be some horse.
It was fantastic to be asked on to the Cheltenham Exchange Day 2 preview with Alex, Johnny, Ian and Harry from the Only Fools and Horses podcast. I was the other guest invited with Harry, and the Day 2 preview put up most of the winners for the day. Sadly, I brought up the rear with 0 winners. It was really good of the guys to ask me on. They're a fast building YouTube channel, very good graphics, lots of knowledge, and a lot of time being put into the channel. I'll go through my selections and I'll say how I felt they ran. Firstly, I put up In the Pocket in the Ballymore, and he was a non-runner. He went in the Supreme due to the softening ground. He finished 4th in the Supreme, and there's absolutely no way he'd have beaten the impressive winner of the Ballymore in Perry Pass. In the Brown Advisory, my nap of the festival ran in that race. That was Jerry Colombe. My enthusiasm for the horse was only heightened by the rain, and I was really keen that he would win this race. I actually put him up on my own channel as well, and part of a double. And the other part of the double had won, but Jerry Colombe was outpaced 3 out. And although he stayed on after the last, he couldn't quite collar the leader, the real Walker, and finished 2nd. I took a real swing at the Coral Cup with a 50-1 shot the very man. That was not the right thing to do. And congratulations to Ian on picking the winner, Langer Down, in that race at 12-1. That was a good winner for subscribers of their channel. In the champion chase, it looked a match between Edward Stone and Energumen. Sadly, Edward Stone blew out in the race. He really didn't run a good race. He looked like a horse that wasn't right, but I'd selected him. He was my selection in that race, and Energumen was a really easy winner. In the cross country, I talked about Delta Work and about Galvin. I, however, didn't make a solid selection, and so you would have to say that race I sort of didn't really make a selection. In the Grand Annual, I was looking at Rouge Vif, but he hadn't been declared. He didn't make the declaration, so he would have been a money back selection. But the other selection I looked at was Andy Dufresne. He did not run that well actually, and finished 9th. And yeah, he was one of the JP McManus handicappers who really didn't show in the race. In the final race, I talked about a Dream to Share having the best form, but for me, because I'd heard so many good words about Chapeau de Soleil, I went with him in the bumper. Now, my fate was sealed long before the off on this horse. When he survived the ballot, I hoped I'd get Paul Townend. I knew that Patrick Mullins was probably going to ride Fuck to File, but I hoped that Paul Townend would take Chapeau de Soleil. Not only did Townend not take the horse, but Danny Mullins didn't take the horse, and we were left with Brian Hayes, a perfectly able jockey, but really fourth string, so they didn't think this was anywhere near their first string. He was held out the back. He came through some beaten horses late on to finish 10th. So, not the best of 5 selections that actually ran, with Jerry Colombe finishing second, the best of my selections. I really would say that you should subscribe to the Cheltenham Exchange. The 3 guys on that channel produced quite a few winners over the day 3. Harry produced winners as well, especially in the bumper. I'm sure he took a Dream to Share. It was a privilege to be on the show. I think you should support the smaller YouTube channels like the Cheltenham Exchange as they grow and get bigger and bigger. Thanks for allowing me on to the channel. If you ever invite me back, I'll hope to do a lot better than this, but I can only apologise for my selections on the day. Sadly, I didn't do very well. So, yeah, good luck to the boys on the Cheltenham Exchange going forward. Bye for now.
Hi everyone, I hope you all had a very good and a very profitable festival. The guys have very kindly asked me to review the Thursday of the festival, which I suspect is probably just them holding me to account for my selections. It was a tough old day on the Thursday, and I think apart from those of you that managed to bag Sire de Burley or Seddon for the plate, it would have been a very tough day to be ahead at the end of. Clearly, I wasn't one of those people that had those 2 horses, so yeah, I found it a pretty tough day on the punting side. I had 2 good days on the Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday was a real leveler for me. So and it was a good reminder, really, that you know, nobody really has this game by the balls. Okay, so on to reviewing the races. The Turners worked out okay for me. Mighty Potter was a lay, which I was quite firm about on the podcast, and so it proved. He never really looked like he had the necessary tactical speed. He was also quite a difficult ride, I thought, over the last half mile or so. And that's 2 years running now with him, so you know, I have some doubts whether we'll see him turn up at the festival again. Appreciate was the one that I backed. And I'm not really one for bashing jockeys, but I thought it was a poor tactical ride from Paul Town. And it may not have been his decision, of course. It may have just been simply riding to instructions, and probably was. But I just don't understand why they rode him out the back when it's not usual for him at all. I thought it was a far too confident a ride, and Harry Cobden was just allowed to bowl along up front and just dictate the pace, which wasn't particularly quick, I didn't think. It was a fairly moderate pace. Appreciate it finished his race as one of the fastest finishes of a race all week, so he had loads left. Anyway, you know, I just didn't think they really gave him a chance to win the race, which is a shame. They still hold him in high regard. We've all heard the stable talk, and maybe if they get the tactics right at Punchestown, he'll win there. He's probably got Mighty Potter to beat again. He didn't this time, but I think he'll reverse. So maybe that's the day for him. The horse to take out of the race for me is the winner, actually, not Appreciate It. Appreciate It, not got time inside now age-wise. Stage Star clearly has, so he's of interest for next year's festival. And presumably they'll be aiming at the Ryanair. A race that obviously Nichols has won before, so I think that's probably the obvious route for him. The Potemps, I put up a big price each way selection for that, primarily because I didn't want to put Shoot First up because it was a very short price. I think it was 7-2 maybe at the time. So the alternative for a podcast was really to put an each way selection up. Schalke didn't run, it wasn't declared, so just so you know, guys know what I did. I replaced him with Mocha Devassi at 50-1. He was backed in the 24 hours leading up to the race, went off at 16-1, but fell at the second hurdle, so didn't get any kind of run for that. The winner, Good Time Johnny, I did back, although I didn't put it up. He was clear Tony Martin plot, based on the trends. You know, he was an obvious one to have on side. Those two runs either side of the Leopardstown qualifier over 2 miles were probably a strong indication that we're managing his mark. He qualified comfortably in third, got nowhere near the winner, Maxim. I think he was 17 lengths or something behind Maxim, so that, you know, he didn't get touched by the handicapper. As I say, that race is a really strong trends race, so, you know, he was the obvious one. But, you know, I ended up putting a haymaker up for this rather than putting him up, because Shoot First would have been my selection if he ran. So I just didn't really have the option of tipping him up for this, unfortunately. The Shoot First actually is a horse that I'll probably come back to, because I think there's still some merit in the conversation for him. I think he's a horse to take out the race, even though he didn't run. But anyway, onto the Ryanair. I also took on Shishkin, partly based on price, but a couple of other factors. He needed to back up the Ascot performance, which is the first decent performance he's put up in 13-14 months. So I think also, you know, his jumping's been a bit hit and miss over that period too. In the last few races, he's not really convinced me with his jumping. And I thought that was another reason to take him on. I thought I probably got a bit lucky after the race with him. He made a bad mistake and ran on and was, for me, the best horse in the race, not Envoy Allen. But, you know, having reviewed the race a couple of times now, you know, despite his engine being fully intact, those jumping issues were still apparent. They were apparent there again, including one mistake that cost him the race. So, you know, that was the whole purpose of opposing him, really, and laying him. I think he could be a viable challenger over the longer trip to Galopin des Champs next season in the Gold Cup. Going half a stride slower might just help his jumping, or, you know, if he makes a mistake, just a bit more recovery time, I suppose. And I just wonder if Nicky Henderson has any regrets about not having to go at the Gold Cup this time. Blue Lord was my each way alternative. He was poor again for a second time though. Not settling really, I didn't think. But also looking as though there's just something not quite right. I don't know if it's mental or physical. It's impossible to say really, but he's got everything to prove moving forward, and, you know, you couldn't be touching him for anything. He's probably one of those that'll just come back and bite at some point, but you just couldn't back him. What can I say about the stayers? Oh God. It was a race for me that should have been between the horses at the head of the market. And Sire de Burley winning suggests it wasn't a great renewal, really. I don't really like doing champions down, but it's kind of the only conclusion you can make, really, when he's not been good enough for it before, and now he's gone and won it as an 11-year-old. I think the irony for me personally is that other than Tahupu, I thought there were doubts about all of the prominent horses in the market for various reasons, fitness, ability, etc., etc. And I just didn't listen to my own advice, and I should have been looking for an each way alternative. I can't say I would have gone for Sire de Burley, but I should have been looking for an each way alternative. In the end, despite the doubts about fitness, I ended up going for Blazing Carl, who maybe wasn't good enough, but probably bounced, I think, because it was his second race after a 15-month layoff. He could be interesting after a short break for Punchestown on better ground, though. So, you know, I wouldn't be giving up on him. Looking ahead next year, the race looks right for one of the big stables to have a real pot shot at. It's definitely a soft grade one. I've already mentioned Shoot First. I think they think he could potentially be a grade one horse. which is why I think he was the horse to take out of the potential, not, having not run. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sir Gerhard sent back over hurdles named here, after his run in the Turners where he wasn't brilliant. Sorry, in the Turners, in the Brown Advisory, where he wasn't brilliant. I thought it was a bit of a disappointment actually, and didn't jump particularly good either. I didn't think he was very sticky over the first mile. But also with the amount of riches that Willie Mullins has got at his disposal, maybe he can hold one or two of his novices back for next season. And he's also got the nice guy Manella Kakuna coming back, so maybe even one of those being held back over hurdles is a possibility. But I think we just have to see a better stage than we did this year. It was a poor race, and I think it will encourage the trainers to have a real go at it. My selection in the plate was That's All Right Gino. He was backed into 5-1 favourites. I think probably largely because of the performance of Stage Star earlier in the day, but he had been quite prominent in the market really. But he just didn't travel. He was pulled up. Jamie Snowden said he wasn't suited by the going. Not having that, because it was similar going when he was second to Stage Star. I can't remember if it was Christmas or no, it was at the trials meeting. So that's not a valid excuse. I think more likely because he ran at the trials meeting and they decided to take the pendulum in between times. That's this race was his third race in 6 weeks, and he'd already just come off the back of 2 hard ones. So you can't expect a horse still to be at its peak three races in over a period of 6 weeks when you're in this kind of company. So again, the benefit of hindsight, maybe he was a risky proposition. Seddon was a decent winner, I thought. His course form probably made him want to back. I didn't. But I thought the best horse was probably Fugitive, that finished second. He was more or less left behind at the start, and that wouldn't have suited him. He's normally pretty prominent, so I think he was the best horse in the race. I think probably by a little bit of a margin. I think they're unfortunate. I'm actually interested in him for next year's Ryanair. I thought his run at Trials Day was probably just about on par with Stage Star on the same day in the novice race. And I think he could offer some Ante-Post value in the Ryanair, because that's potentially a weak. Well, it is still a weak division. Stage Star is obviously the prominent one in that market at the moment. We may have Shishkin staying there. I think it's unlikely. I think they'll step him up in trip now. Alaho's obviously had a season out, so there has to be big doubts about him. And there's no other horse that readily springs to mind really in that division. So I think Fugitive at the price is one to be interested in later. If the handicapper isn't too harsh, maybe also consider him for the Paddy Power meeting, the Paddy Power Gold Cup. I also wouldn't be put off backing That's All Right Gino for that as a fresher horse. Whether they get a prep in or go straight there, he's not going to have the tough prep he had for this. So, he'd probably be back into contention for that. And that course and distance 2.5 mile form holds up time and time again. So, you can't ignore that. So the top two had that course and distance form. The horse in third, Shaking Up Harry, also did. He'd run well previously at the New Year's Day meeting, finishing third from memory in that race. Certainly wasn't too far away from the winner of that race. He also is one that they could easily have a pop at the Paddy Power meeting. And if he didn't win or his mark doesn't go up too much by New Year, I'd be tempted to then pop him up at 3 miles. As a prep before taking on the Ultimate next season. He's a Flemensfirth, so you'd like to think he wants a trip. So, if he was mine, he'd be one that I'd be starting to think about plotting for that race. But I don't know whether connections are of that kind of mind. I've no idea, or even whether they even think in that way. The Mares Novice Hurdle. Again, I was against Lucia at the head of the market, so I got the day pretty much right as far as on the lay side. I was concerned about jumping in, a big field at pace, so that worked out pretty well. The one I backed, I was on the wrong Henry de Bromhead horse, Foxy Girl. Magical Zoe was the best of his two, I think. Foxy Gill was way too keen. She maybe needed a run rather than almost 3 months off. She's just way too fresh. They just need to get some freshness out of her. But she might be worth persisting with. She might pop at a price actually over an easier 2 miles. Again, whether she could turn up at Aintree or Punchestown, who knows? But Punchestown probably more likely, I guess. But I think she could run a big race with that race in her legs. But I think you weigh it well. The winner I thought was a decent winner. Magical Zoe I thought got a bit of a strange ride. It was pulled out wide at the back, covering a lot of ground all the way around. Made a mistake at a crucial time. The winner had already gone by then. She's only beaten 3 lengths, and with a better ride I think she could reverse. It could end up being the better horse of the two. But the top 4 of the race are all interesting for next season. Wouldn't be surprised to see at least 3 of them turn up into the mare's hurdle. And just with the thought that Halka to Taber for Gordon Elliott might be targeted at something like the Coral Cup, that would be good MO, or the kind of MO for him that we could see. So she would be interesting for something like that if she's off the right kind of mark. And then finally we've got the Kim Muir. I did back the winner Angel's Dawn based on the information I had, and pretty much how well in connections thought she was. How well in connections thought she was. But the problem was, the general feeling was she wasn't going to get into the race. So the plan was to go to the Midlands National instead. She did get in. I couldn't select her for obvious reasons. The irony, of course, is that one that I put up, Am I Right, or however you're supposed to pronounce that, wasn't declared. He goes to the Irish National, I believe, in a couple of weeks. So I'm hoping that's the payday on him. But there's nothing really that came out of that race other than that of interest. There's nothing really moving forward. So that's it. Not the best Thursday on the betting front. A very good day on the laying side. Called those 3 right. So for me now, batteries are fully recharged after a pretty heavy social week where I met up with the Cheltenham Exchange boys and we had a few beers. And possibly met up with a few you guys that watch into. I'm already looking forward to working on next season. I'm a bit like John in the respect that I like to make a book or make books. Anyway, look, thanks to the Cheltenham Exchange boys for asking me onto their excellent podcast. Loved it to bit, boys. Happy to do it any time, and look forward to doing this all over again next year. Cheers, everybody. Good luck for next year.
Hi, this is Jaime Wrenn here, just reviewing my picks of day 4 for the Cheltenham Exchange boys. You might know me from Dave Chantmental channel with Daryl Carter. I suppose my picks, I went through there the video. Blood Destiny, very disappointing. I suppose soaked when he didn't get to the front with Jupiter Gee. Thought he travelled well, and then the writing was on the wall down the hill. Thought Paul Town and give Lassimo a great ride. Had Lassimo ages ago since last September and Ante-Post bet, so I suppose I covered the race. Garnham was so I have to take over the race. Up the hill well. Zenta as well ran well. Horse with very little experience. On to the county. Pembroke here. I was told even on the day, a few friends of mine fancied Favour, and it was the old case in my head in Spirit of the Games there a couple of years ago, which is me. To be honest with you, I Pembroke Ante-Post, and on the day I backed Piper. Just thought he liked the pace. I backed Charger as well. So small bit there, but very gutted in Beck Favour, and he was told to back it, but that's the way it goes. Pembroke, I was very disappointed in it. Just the way it goes. The other thing, onto the Bartlett. Oh my god, it was a blood bet for me. I did Ante-Post on Sander Click on. I got a bing after the race. Can't believe I finished 3rd, forgot about it. And Stay Away Faye, I couldn't have it, but I suppose there was always a thing back in my mind that people were giving out on Angus Shalita's ride on him in Doncaster behind Maximilian, and I suppose like with Maximilian now going and having a chance at the grade 1 at Aintree, I don't know myself. After Dale Fury finished in 2nd, couldn't have that in the month of Sundays. Very disappointed with 3 Bragg. I suppose my theory was always, but I never really thought that he stayed 3 miles. I thought he should have been in the Martin Pipe, and it looked like he didn't stay to me. And of course, my lost a good few pound on Corbett's Cross, but he looked beaten at the time anyway, even if he ducked out. He was just far too keen. They'll definitely go back and trip with him, but I still think he's a good horse, and he's one to follow for next year as Corbett's Cross. Onto the Gold Cup. Well, I can't complain about the Gold Cup. It was one of my most profitable races of the week. I've been Champs wins back in them all year, and getting the third and completed each way. Great run by Brave Man's Game, I have to admit. But to me, some people are saying that I think he stays, but I don't think he'll always find one too good Brave Man's Game at Cheltenham, I'm afraid. But great day for me on that one. The Fox Hunters, I had a few small bets on it. Fossilate, Rocky's Hoya. I should have backed It's on the Line, but I couldn't have the winner. I can't even remember the name of the winner. That's to be honest with you. It's that race really. They should move on from it, but that's just the way it is. I'm very disappointed Wayne Leader didn't run, and that's it really. Yeah, onto the Mayor's Chase. Very profitable race for me. I've backed in the Furthest all year since November. Text a friend of mine after Cork. They said this horse will win the Mayor's Chase, and it's great feeling. You go up to Cheltenham Hill and you can't lose. And what a race, what a finish. And she's definitely a mare to Alec Vordy Vassi. What do they do with her? Do they come back and trip maybe? I don't know. Probably better on a right-handed track for me, but Impervious looks a right mare and just likes winning, and is a fantastic jumper and stayed on up the hill and on maybe to better things. The last race, oh my god, what was I thinking of? Floran, I don't know. I got the each round Mackay, and I did because I said it on the Twitter poll for the Cheltenham Exchange lads that I fancied a Rocco for the Carl Cup. I could not leave it go in the Martin Pipe, so I backed that. So I was happy with that in the end. I suppose the most annoying part, I presume, with Rocco is that I fancied a Rocco for the Carl Cup and I fancied Langard instead for the Martin Pipe deep down. They switched, never backed Langard in the Carl Cup, backed an Epic Song, and I backed a Rocco in the end. Got a good few quid back in it, and I was happy. Yeah, I suppose it was a good festival for me, and thanks for Cheltenham Exchange guys for having me, and roll on Cheltenham 2024. Thank you.
Hi, it's the bad boy of bowls, Scotty. Thanks to the Cheltenham Exchange boys for the season. Just going to give a quick review of my picks from day 4 of the festival, following on from the preview we did a few weeks ago. Not a great day selection-wise. It was a very tough week, I thought. Day 1 was great, but then the week kind of went like that, and yeah, that's the way it goes. But we've got the whole season to look forward to. The rest of the season to look forward to with Aintree and Punchestown. But yeah, regarding day 4, I mean, the first race, the Triumph Hurdle, I was with Lottie Mouth all season, and for some reason I kind of swung at the last moment to Blood Destiny. Obviously I tipped Comfort Zone as well each way, but he didn't show up, so I'm hoping he'll be there for Aintree, but most likely Punchestown. Blood Destiny, again, it was a classic case. I thought he had it his own way. His first couple of runs of the season, he had the run of the race, he jumped well, but like some horses, they get taken on, don't get the easy lead, and they just don't perform. And it was the same with Blood Destiny. Finished halfway down through the field, was never really in the race, and the best horse on the day won, Lottie Mouth. She showed that she stays. She's got the speed as well. So yeah, I was very pleased to see her win. But Blood Destiny going forward, I think he'd be good over fences. I wouldn't lose the faith in him. County Hurdle, again, absolute shocker. I had 2 big fancies, and my outsider Glory and Fortune was rubbish as well. But Pembroke, he was just nowhere to be seen. I was totally shocked. But typical Dan Skelton, wins the County Hurdle and wins it with a horse which nobody was, apart from Matty, who fancied Favois. But I couldn't have had him as the first string. Pembroke was disappointing, and Hunter's Yarn, absolutely no idea what happened. No excuses. Willie Mullen seemed to just think he underperformed, which was quite obvious. So just disappointing there. Albert Bartlett, my picks, again, 2 strong fancies for the race, both pulled up. Typical Albert Bartlett, about 6 or 7 horses were pulled up. Embassy Gardens and Seabank Bistro. I'm definitely going to stick with Seabank Bistro next season. I think whatever he does, I will definitely keep him on side. I just don't know if that suited him, that race. It was just too bad to be true yet again. But I did give a mention to Sandor Clegane as a horse to follow for the future. Ran a massive race in the Albert Bartlett. Out of all the ones I didn't fancy strongly to perform on this day, and horses to look for as potential chasers, he performed the best. And I said to everybody who watched the video to stick a fiver on for the National Hunt Chase next season. He's going to go chasing, and I think the National Hunt Chase is right down the street for this horse next season. I'll be looking forward to seeing him. Gold Cup, I was convinced Conflated would run well, and I was pretty convinced Galloping Des Champs would go close to winning if he stayed, and of course he stayed. He was absolutely awesome. Second best horse in training, as I said. Only behind Constitution Hill, of course. But two different horses, two brilliant performers, two brilliant winners on the week. Conflated, I was very happy with how he ran. I'm so glad he's not going for the Grand National. He was just outstayed, wasn't he, really? Ran his race, brilliant. And I will definitely be interested in following him at Aintree, which I believe he's going to run in the bowl. So yeah, I was happy with the each way money there at 16s. It was quite a solid selection, so I was happy with that. Fox Hunter, Secret Investor, wasn't a strong fancy, didn't run well, came nowhere. But my main lay of the week landed, and that was Vasile. I was convinced he wasn't going to win. I was not convinced by the horse. His back form suggested that he would need the trip, but he just didn't seem to stay for me. Didn't jump brilliant, and I was happy he got beat, to be honest, because I did lay the packet on him. And my other main fancy for the day, Jeremy's Flame in the Mayor's Chase, she was absolutely rubbish. Should have known better, should have backed the young improving horses. The old me would have backed Impervious and Allegory Devassi and just coupled them and taken a small profit, but I got the race pretty much wrong, to be honest. Impervious should have been running in the Turners, and she ran in this and proved she is probably the best mare in training over fences at the moment. Allegory Devassi, I would like to see go. I think she'd definitely go better back in trip, but I think she'd go okay in something like a race at Kempton on a flat track next season. I'd like to see her run maybe in the Desert Orchid. Just Willie bring her over for 2 miles and give her a spin around there. So going forward, I think Impervious will be a horse to keep on side, but Jeremy's Flame, rubbish. And Martin Pipe, Metier didn't turn up. I didn't have a strong fancy in the race. And that's really all I've got to say on the Martin Pipe. But yeah, not a great Friday, but thanks everybody for following the videos, and obviously thank you to the boys at the Cheltenham Exchange for having me on. Really appreciate it, and fingers crossed we will see you again soon.